How many more rights are they going to take away? How can you do that? It should be illegal. It should not be ever a consideration. When Nestlé approached the city of Cascade Locks and when they had their meetings at the table, the city should have been able to say, oh, no, our governor, our state agencies will not go for that. We don't sell our water. We protect our resources. That's how the conversation should have gone. We respect our tribes. We respect the Treaty of 1855. We respect the fishing families who depend on that salmon for a livelihood, who depend on that salmon first for our spiritual practices. That's how the response Nestlé should have gotten from our city leaders.
I want to tell you a story. It's a classic. A small town, a giant corporation, courage, corruption. Small voices grow large as the truth they speak is recognized. It is a true story, and it is ongoing. As you may know, from your experience, every single day of your life, water is necessary. Good, clean water is life. This story is about Nestlé's attempts to open a water bottling operation in a small town in Oregon. After 8 years of resistance, citizens and activists have come together and created a ballot initiative that would ban commercial water bottling in Hood River County. This ballot is to be voted on this coming May. This film seeks to explain what has happened in the 8 years leading up to this ballot initiative.
Water is sacred, not for sale! Water is sacred, not for sale!
Cascade Locks is a city in Hood River County, Oregon, located in the heart of the Columbia Gorge National Scenic Area. It maintains a population of 1,144 humans, approximately. Nestlé is the largest bottled water company in the world, worth roughly $247 billion as of May 2015. They have a long history of controversial environmental practices and recently admitted to the use of slave labor in their supply chain. This is Oxbow Spring. Nestlé has been trying to bottle and sell this water since 2008.
My name's Kate Stewart. I'm a resident of Cascade Locks for over 10 years, and I've been fighting Nestlé for over 7 of those years. I'm the one it all started with. I'm the beginning. I'm the one that first spoke up and said, no, this isn't right.
So what is it that you've been fighting against? What?
Essentially Nestlé taking over my town. At the beginning, if you look me up, it's going to say, well, I don't think it's that terrible, but we need to research it. Well, my town is not researching it. My town has just accepted everything Nestlé has said as the truth and would be good for us, and they are not taking up certain issues that I personally would like to see taken up, like traffic, like water availability, like thermal refuge issues, like the noise that the trucks are going to make when one goes by my house every 4 minutes. It's pretty personal for me. Like I said, I've lived this for 7 years. There is already what I was most fearing about Nestlé was this taking over the local government, of getting the people on their side, of even paying them. The port president has admitted that he took a stipend from Nestlé for quite a while there. Before he was port president, granted, but still I think that's something that should have been brought up to the community when he was running for that office. Well, let's see. Tom Cramlett, the mayor, works for the port. His wife works for the port. Rich Randall is on city council. He works for the port.
You can understand why the port commissioners are having us do everything we can to bring companies in here.
And right here is the port office. And everyone except for one person in the port is very pro-Nestlé.
But there's a lot of people who don't really understand what's going on and how this happens, that a large corporation comes in, starts softening up some politicians, starts giving them offers, starts telling them essentially how to vote, what to say. I am so tired of hearing Nestlé's words come out of my politicians' mouths.
In 2008, Kate Stewart contacts Food and Water Watch, expressing her concerns. In 2009, the City of Cascade Locks and the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife created an intergovernmental agreement regarding how to go about making Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife's water available for bottling. Behind closed doors, Governor Kulongoski greenlights the project and gets the Regional Solutions team to establish the water exchange scheme to make ODFW water available to Nestlé. Food and Water Watch forms the Keep Nestlé Out of the Gorge coalition.
The reason why it makes sense for Nestlé to open up shop kind of off the beaten path here in Cascade Locks is because of how much money they can make on the spring water. That premium brand is what makes it economically feasible for them to open up shop in Cascade Locks. And the spring water they wish to bottle, and this is one of the things that makes this a very unique situation, is used by the state of Oregon for a fish hatchery. The Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife is the sole water right holder to Oxbow Springs, which is the spring water Nestlé wants to bottle. And so it's very clear that Nestlé found Oregon attractive because we don't have an Environmental Protection Act. Washington has one, California has one. It requires an environmental assessment of every proposal or every new project. Oregon does not have one. I think they were attracted to the idea they didn't have to do an environmental assessment. What they didn't anticipate is that procuring water that's public water, that's a state water right, involves a very long, drawn-out public process. And Food and Water Watch was able to develop a broad statewide coalition of groups that were willing to fight that state-level process in a really rigorous way.
In 2010, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and Cascade Locks submit a water rights transfer application.
It involves a fairly complicated water exchange proposal where Nestlé would be allowed to bottle water from nearby Oxbow Springs. The city of Cascade Locks would replace it with water from its municipal wells.
The Keep Nestlé Out of the Gorge coalition submits some 6,000 comments in opposition to the proposal. In 2011, the ODFW submits a new water rights exchange application with slight changes. The Keep Nestlé Out of the Gorge coalition submits thousands more comments in opposition.
We can't even keep track of the number of comments we've gotten sent into the governor's office over the span of the last almost 8 years. But it has been, we were told at one point in time by Governor Kitzhaber that they've received more comments on the Nestlé water volume proposal than on any other issue. And this is a state that was fighting coal trains and liquefied natural gas exports and some really, really big environmental problems. And the Nestlé bottling facility is something that Oregonians feel very passionately about.
Tiana Bustiecker is a member of the Cascade Locks City Council. The views expressed in this interview are her own and are not representative of the City of Cascade Locks, its council, or any of its other members. It's my understanding that the other members, like you're on the city council and there, every other member endorses the plan.
Oh, yes.
Why do they endorse the plan?
There's a lot of reasons, and I think even though this has become so divisive, I still believe that the people who are for the plan, they really do believe they're doing what's right for the town. And, there's a lot of economic factors. This is a hugely disadvantaged economic town. The town used to be based on resource extraction. logging and fishing and things like that. And as those industries died commercially, you know, we lose jobs in the town. And so I understand them wanting, you know, somebody who's gonna, you know, bring the income, the taxes, the utility sales, you know, everything else. But it feels like, you know, selling your soul to the devil.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I can't help it. Nestlé to me is second only to Monsanto in everything that's wrong with our food supply. And that's not what I want in my community. And I think we can do better. The thing that convinced me that the rest of council was not to be trusted in protecting our water was when the mayor said, "Oh, I've been up there. All that the water just bubbles up out of the ground and goes to waste. So if we don't bottle it, it's going to go to waste." And it was really hard for me to hold my tongue. I just wanted to jump up there and say, no, nature doesn't waste anything. That would be humans you're thinking of.
This is how Nestlé wins the favor of, you know, the local people. If you look on that little plaque there, they gave money so that way that this, you know, that the artwork could be funded.
So they're like trying to, like, you know, bribe the community with
Well, they're definitely currying favor from them. The food bank they give money to, and so that's the big sell. Hey, if we get corporate sponsorship, you know, we could really use the help.
In 2012, the Oregon Water Resources Department comes out with a preliminary determination to approve the water transfer application. Food and Water Watch and BARC contest the decision. This begins a contested case hearing process wherein they are represented by the Cragg Law Center. Protests continue to grow.
Now, they're angry with the governor about the proposed Nestlé water bottling plant, which would be built in Cascade Locks.
The idea of privatization of water is a very scary notion.
They say allowing Nestlé to use the water supply is basically giving away a public resource, and they've gathered 30,000 signatures, given them to the governor, who has allowed the permitting process for this plant to move forward.
There are a lot of potential problems that can arise if Nestlé is allowed to open up shop in Oregon. And I want to start with the statewide level issues. At the state level in this specific situation, we're talking about a state agency being asked to make public water available so that Nestlé can profit off of it. Right now, of the some 30 water bottlers in the state, not one of them bottles water from a state agency. This would be precedent setting and letting multinational corporations know that state agencies are welcoming water profiteers into the state, and especially on the heels of a massive, almost statewide drought, seems like an incredibly irresponsible thing to do. And on the local level, if Nestlé were allowed to open up shop, we know from looking at their water bottling habits in Denver and Maine and Michigan, everywhere else where they operate, that they're willing to truck water on massive semi-trucks from up to 150 miles away from their water bottling facilities to augment their water bottling plants. So we know that this is not just a fight for the city of Cascade Locks water and Oxbow Springs. This is a fight for spring water resources from throughout the gorge, including Washington and the rest of Hood River County. And if you look at Hood River County, I mean, it is a county that really depends on agriculture. It's an agricultural-based economy with a lot of orchards. And they had to severely cut back on their water usage this year due to a drought. We don't think that it's reasonable or responsible for those farmers to have to compete with a multinational water bottler for these increasingly scarce resources.
In 2013, protests continue to grow. In 2014, Pamela Larson forms a local group to oppose Nestlé, and this becomes the Local Water Alliance.
We need to protect our water. Nestlé's project would set a very dangerous precedent. We need our water for families, for farms, and fish. So we need to protect the fishing water rights. We need to protect the sacred and precious water.
Local Water Alliance, this is a pretty grassroots effort. We have people from Cascade Locks, from Hood River, and people who are just really concerned about water security here in the Gorge. So really it just started with a lot of concerned citizens, and it's been long-standing. People have kind of come in and out, but really a lot of things have taken place this past year. And we're just really excited about, keeping Nestlé and potentially other bottling corporations out of the gorge. Well, Nestlé knows that water is big profit, and they are after some pristine spring water here in Cascade Locks in Oxbow Spring, and that's really cold, 40-degree water that is essential for fish, for their habitat. I live real close to the Columbia, and I get into the water last year. The water was so warm. I mean, the temperature of the Columbia was 70 plus. So to have a major water bottling operation here, pulling cold water that we need for the health of our river, is just crazy. And we certainly don't want to be known to set the precedent of being a water exporting county. But the precedent we want to set is that we're a community that can keep Nestlé and other corporations like Coke or Pepsi out of here.
When we make decisions as a people, there's like a saying that we have, that every decision our leaders make, our council, our chiefs, our spiritual leaders, we have to make those decisions with 7 generations down in mind. And each one of those generations, those leaders have to make decisions with 7 generations down in mind, how that generation's going to be affected. And this is something that the City of Cascade Locks leaders, all leaders, need to realize and think about. How is Nestlé going to help the city councils 7 generations down the line, their children and their children's children and their children's children? And it goes on and on. We have to think that way, not just in the here and the now. And that's a big part of our practice. We have to think that way, because every decision we make today, our children are going to either live with or suffer with in their future. All the water is sacred to Native people, the traditional Native people of this area. That spring is a sacred site that should be protected under the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, but which is not, because of they changed the law. We always know once they put new words on paper that we're getting ready to lose something else. And this is really big. We have fishermen, thousands of fishermen from all 4 tribes, Warm Springs, Yakima, Umatilla, Nimi Poos, or Nez Perce, who depend on fishing for a livelihood. But first and foremost, the salmon goes to our longhouses. The fishermen have to fill up the longhouses in all 4 tribes and longhouses along the river for our ceremonial practices throughout the whole year. It doesn't make sense for any community, whether we were native or not. It's unethical for one community to take the livelihood away from another. setting our tribes and all of that aside, that's unethical to do. To create, even if it was 50 jobs, but then you're going to put this other community of several thousand people out of work, that's wrong. And that's something that should have been considered from day one. But we seem to be this invisible people. Even in the laws, even in the transfer of water rights law, there is no mention of the tribe. It does say they cannot approve it if it is found to harm, to cause harm to a person or people. Okay, we are a person and we're a people. It's causing harm. So I, in kind of desperation and wondering what to do, I knew it would take a lot of work to go to all the loose sites again, which I did, and go to all 4 tribes and talk to all the pertinent people, the councils and chiefs. Would take a long time, and I felt like we didn't have the time. So I decided to do a fast for 5 days. I sat in front of the city hall so they can see me. I went without food and water for 5 days, drinking just a little Oxbow spring water in the morning and evening.
She's sitting in protest in Cascade Locks, and she hasn't been eating. The woman, who's Native American, says Nestlé is violating a more than 150-year-old treaty.
Anna Mae Leonard has been sitting here since Monday. She will continue to be here through Friday, directly across from City Hall in Cascade Locks, protesting the proposed bottled water facility in town.
And then she proceeded to organize a massive rally on the Capitol steps in Salem.
Not for sale. Water is sacred, not for sale. Water is sacred, not for sale. Water is sacred.
Our wilderness and our springs and our water is not for sale.
We want the transfer of water rights application to be withdrawn.
Because we don't want to see the same thing happen to them springs as it's happened to the Columbia. One time we used to drink the water on the Columbia. We used to use it for our cooking and everything. We can't do that anymore.
The unlimited harvest of all of the natural resources is going to leave this land barren. I want my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, I want yours too, to enjoy the water that's drinkable.
The Columbia River is a very polluted river. It's more of a lake now than it is a river. It's just a series of dams all the way up to Canada. And we've experienced warmer water temperatures this year than's ever been recorded, which included hundreds of thousands of salmon dying. And we don't think taking a cool spring out of that water system is a good idea.
These actions did not go unnoticed. The Warm Springs Tribe sent a letter to the governor's office. The governor ended up meeting with both the Umatilla and Warm Springs Tribe after both of them came out in opposition to this project. And local citizens who live in Cascade Locks and in Hood River County realized, especially after the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife applied for that water rights swap, that they needed to get active if they were going to protect their local water. And they launched a ballot initiative process. The Local Water Alliance, they founded a group called the Local Water Alliance that's running the Hood River Water Protection Measure, which would outlaw exporting any water from Hood River County for water bottling purposes. It's a historic measure, it's legal, it's legally defensible, and we plan to win. It looks really, really winnable. And the governor, who who up to this point had refused to weigh in and even said things like she didn't have a role to play in this process and that it was about local economic development. At that point in time, after tribal opposition became public and after local citizens launched a ballot initiative campaign, the governor came out in public and sent 2 letters. One letter to the Water Resources Department asking them to develop a policy on how to handle it when third parties request public water resources. So there's supposedly policy in the works. We're going to be meeting with the Oregon Water Resources Department and hopefully helping them come up with a decent policy for such requests. But we also have, she also sent a letter to the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife telling them to completely pull out of the water rights swap application because this proposal requires at least the most rigorous review possible. So she went, and ODFW complied with that request. They pulled out of the water rights swap, which they started at the beginning of the year. And now it's, that doesn't mean that she stopped the project. It means we're back to the original proposal, which is a water rights, or a water exchange, which requires a public interest review, which is a more rigorous review process. But it's significant because she was saying that she had no role to play, and after a lot of local opposition and tribal opposition, she's changed her tune and has started taking action on this issue. So it really shows that with the right amount of organizing and local support, you can really shift things at the statewide level.
So there you go. That brings us here, 2016. On March 9th, 2016, a political action committee called Coalition for a Strong Gorge Economy was formed to oppose the measure. It is surprisingly well-funded and very much in favor of Nestlé's plan to bottle and sell Oregon's water. I wonder who would have interest in funding such a campaign. Regardless, May 17th, 2016, the people of Hood River County will have their say, and they will vote on this historic measure, Ballot Measure 1455. Voting yes will say no to Nestlé. If you live in Hood River County, make sure to vote. And for more information and to contribute and to get involved, go to localwateralliance.org. And for more videos, subscribe to Dead Media on YouTube, as well as like it on Facebook. Clearly, Nestlé has spent a lot of money on propaganda for their plant, and now spending more on their political action committee. And I just wanted to make clear that the only payment I have received for making this film was a jar of salmon that Clarice gave me on the day that I interviewed her. I'm open to money, though. If you want to give me some money, I will use it to make more movies. You can put it in my PayPal account. It's salshakes@gmail.com. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Say no to Nestlé.